Hello, I am Joe Piggin. I'm a senior lecturer here at Loughborough University in the UK. However, I'm originally from New Zealand, so that's where the accent comes from, in case you're wondering. And this video series is on physical activity politics, and I hope it's a chance to share some research that I and others have been doing on physical activity. It's a chance to interview some of the experts in the field of physical activity, and I hope it stimulates some conversation about the political aspects of physical activity. So let's get into it. And so when I undertake analysis of the politics of physical activity, certainly from an academic standpoint, we need to be informed by theory, or perhaps a variety of theories. And so for me, I'm using a particular form of archaeology, not in terms of getting out there in the field with shovels and spades and digging in the dirt, but in archaeology whereby you look at how knowledge is produced over time. And such an analysis will indicate how ideas can appear over a period of time, how a particular type of scientific approach to a study can be established and cemented, and also how our ideas, our beliefs, our rationalities, our experiences can be reflected and presented in particular ways. So for example, Makula and Pringle, 2006, they produced an archaeology of fitness, physical fitness, and the ideas and the rationalities which are used to construct a various idea about what fitness means. Shurich in 1997 talked about policy archaeology, a particular form of archaeology which I will use for this web series and along with various others. And so to conduct this particular type of approach, well, you observe things, you participate in the discourse and the conversation about physical activity, and it also requires a critical mindset. And so that means not taking things at face value, but really interrogating the assumptions of what is said. And so I thought, to start off this video series, I thought I would problematize what physical activity actually is, because we can take it at face value or we can critically examine it. And so here is my attempt to critically examine the definition of physical activity, the accepted definition, and perhaps offer something else as an alternative. So physical activity is traditionally defined as this. Now this definition is from 1985 and it's certainly still very popular. Casperson, Powell and Christensen define physical activity as any bodily movement produced by skeletal muscles that requires energy expenditure. Now this definition is also popular in policy documents. I think it's currently used by the World Health Organization. And I'm going to suggest that this definition frames physical activity in a particular way. I'm going to argue that if we're going to look holistically at physical activity, I think this definition doesn't quite do it justice. I think it's disintegrated. That is, it divides the idea of physical activity into a specific set of anatomical components. So I'm going to suggest it's disintegrated, and it also excludes a variety of aspects. So I suggest that prioritizes some ideas, anatomical ideas, physiological ideas, which are part of physical activity, but I'm going to suggest that it excludes some other ideas, bodily ideas for sure, such as the cerebral. So in the definition there's nothing about the mind at all, or cognition. There's no emotion in the earlier definition. Now, many emotions out there, but a few include ideas about struggle, pain, joy, achievement. So these ideas, which I would argue are inherent to what physical activity is, they don't feature in Casperson's 1985 definition, which you can see there is reduces physical activity to bodily movement produced by muscles, which requires energy expenditure. I'm going to suggest that it also excludes the political and the social aspects of physical activity. Now, political aspects, as I've mentioned earlier, might involve certain ideas about the need to control or attempt to control other people through physical activity, promotion, personal trainers who are trying to control other people or persuade them to be physically active in a certain way. Now, there's also social aspects of physical activity. So physical activity is so often done with and for other people. And so the social aspects of physical activity don't feature at all in this very physiological definition of physical activity. And it's here that I offer a new definition of physical activity, and I welcome critique of this. But just for comparison and for reminder, I put at the bottom of this page, you can see the traditional definition of physical activity is any bodily movement produced by skeletal muscles requiring energy expenditure. Okay, so I try to include the cerebral, the emotional, the political, and the social in this new definition of physical activity. Okay, so without further ado, here it is. I suggest physical activity involves people moving, acting, and performing within culturally specific spaces and contexts, and influenced by a unique array of interests, emotions, ideas, instructions, and relationships. And I can appreciate there is a lot going on in that definition. But I've attempted to capture the complexity, the depth of human experience, and the variety that is involved in any person's physical activity. So I argue it's far beyond looking at movement by skeletal muscles requiring energy expenditure. I think we need to include elements of the cerebral, cognition, emotion, the political aspects, and also the social aspects of physical activity. And so, as I say, I welcome critique of this definition, but I think it offers a contrast to what is a very constrained definition. And so this is just the start. This is just the beginning. I welcome your critique. There's much more to come. Thank you for listening to episode 1 of Physical Activity Politics. Farewell.